For a long time in JavaScript, if you were going to declare a variable, you had to use the var keyword. But starting with ES6 in 2015, we can now declare variables with let and const as well. Over the next few lessons, I will be talking about what let and const do that's different than var. But one of the things is that let does not let you declare a variable twice. So let's look at this example. We have var cat name equals Quincy, and then down here var cat name equals Bo. And if I just run this code, you'll see that nothing is happening. It's just allowing us to set the cat name twice and declare it twice with the var keyword. However, if we change this to let, we're going to change all the var to let, and you'll see that when we load it again, you'll see an error, duplicate declaration cat name. So this is good that it's creating this error because you usually don't want to declare a variable two times in the same scope. So this allows your program to give you an error to tell you that you've done something wrong. Now you can still reset it. So if we didn't use the word let here, we could just set the cat name variable, and now we're not going to get an error. In this case, we're declaring the variable here to be Quincy, and we're setting the same variable to a new name here. This is one of a few reasons that many people only use let and const and never use var to declare variables. Another thing in this code that you can see is use strict. Now this enables strict mode, which catches common coding mistakes and unsafe actions. So a lot of people will use strict at the top of a full JavaScript file or maybe just in a function to catch coding mistakes, such as if you create a variable and don't declare it with var, let, or const. Another major difference between the var and let keywords is that when you declare a variable with var, it is declared globally or locally if declared inside a function. However, the scope of let is limited to the block, statement, or expression that it was declared in. So let's look at this example here. If you see this code, we have this check scope function, and we're calling it down here, and it's setting I with a var here, a var keyword, to function scope. Then we're setting it to block scope in here, and you can see it's console.logging block scope. I is, and it says block scope. And when we get down here, function scope, it's still block scope. If we want this to be function scope down here, we're going to have to use let. So we would use let here, and then we would use let here. And if we run the code, now you can see in the console, block scope I is block scope, function scope I is function scope. So even though we set I to block scope here inside this block, now a block is just anything inside these squiggly braces here. So we set I inside this block to block scope, but then when we get out here, it's now back to function scope because of this up here. Here's another thing I want to show you. If we comment this line out and we change this to var, what do you think's going to happen? Well, let's run it and find out. Look, we set the var inside this block here to block scope, and it says block scope is block scope. But then when we're outside of the block, when we're outside of these squiggly braces here, we can still access I here, and it's set to block scope. But if this was a let, and we're declaring inside this block, if we run that, now when we get outside the block, we get an error because it's not defined. So that's another reason why people use let instead of var, is so that they can make sure the variable is only defined in the area they want it to be defined in. But for now, I'll uncomment this out